Welcome back, all you listeners. Our
Hello.
next portion of this Advent episode 1 of 2, which will be coming out next week, is peace.
Yeah.
Peace.
Peace. The second candle, the second Sunday of Advent. Peace is, again, I think there's this standard of feelings and thoughts in our Christian faith that transcend the worldview of it. Like
Yeah.
we've talked before about joy is, everlasting, happiness is fleeting, or we talk about, there are good hopes and bad hopes, but faith is what, shines out throughout trials and tribulations. And peace is another one of those where, I think of content is kind of like one of the world similarity words between that of, you can be content for a little bit, but to live in peace, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah. And to be honest, thinking more and more about it, I feel that once again, this is one of those phrases, or rather just words that have been sort of perverted by the world. So whenever I think of peace, I think of two things and then a specific Bible verse, which does not go with those things really at all. Number one is that old joke about like girls in beauty pageants. Whenever they're up on the stage, they're like, "Oh, what are you?" They ask all these questions, right? And then at the end, they're just like, "World peace."
Oh,
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
As if that's supposed to be some sort of call out to make them win. It's like, oh yeah, I really, really want world peace. Well, that brings me to my second one is peace between nations, which is like, two nations that aren't at war. Maybe they have been in the past, and there is a relative, like put down your arms and just kind of like live together.
Yeah.
Live like coincide. But my understanding of peace in the Bible is the peace that surpasses all understanding. And that doesn't sound like things are going all swimmingly on the outside.
Right.
Real peace, I feel like the peace that surpasses all understanding that Jesus brings with the hope of the gospel, with the hope of Christ that we just got done talking about, brings a peace where you can be in the middle of the storm with the winds and the waves crashing against the sides of your boat. Your mast is broken. You have no anchor to weigh down. You're just being tossed and tossed and tossed. And yet you're at peace. It doesn't sound like those other two.
Right. Yeah. I really like what you talk about with the world peace. And I mean, even it reminds me of the Christmas truce. Know about that?
Go ahead and explain.
Okay. World War II.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. World War II. It was the Allies against the Axis. I can't remember who was exactly on what side. I think it was British and German soldiers against each other, and there was a no man's land between them wherever they were. And there it was Christmas Eve, and each side could start to hear others singing Christmas carols or Christmas songs because they're having candlelight, or maybe somebody had a box drum or a guitar or whatever, but they were singing back and forth. And then eventually some got up. Somebody said, "No, they're singing." And so one of them put their hands up and started going across, and the two sides shook hands. They put down their guns that they had been this place there. I mean, there were bodies, there were barbed wire, it was dirt and mud and craziness. But these people, for this one night, they got up and they shook hands. And I think it was that the two commanding officers shared a drink in the middle of no man's land. It's unfortunate that the day after the war continued.
Yeah.
But just for this little moment, there was peace. There was hope. There was hope that when the other guy put his hands and head up, he had the hope that they weren't going to shoot him. And then there was the peace of the moment of a shared drink and a shared handshake on Christmas Eve.
The stuff of legend, man. I don't know how I've probably heard that story once or twice in my life, but none early enough, like where I guess late enough for me to remember, because it sounds very familiar. But anyway, yeah, I guess that would be more sort of the biblical understanding of peace. In the middle of the storm,
Yeah.
if you to get up and be like, "Oh, I'm gonna go sing Rocking Around the Christmas Tree with these people."
Yeah, for sure. yeah, so this idea of peace, it can exist in different ways and have different meanings and help different things. There's, inner peace, peace with ourselves. Can I live with myself, or like, am I at peace with the things, with the way I'm living or the things I've done? There's peace between brothers, like peace between friends. There's peace between, as you said, nations, and all of these can be fostered and grow in really different ways. So, what, Jordan, do you think are our responsibilities to try and cultivate peace among communities? Like peace between each other, between our everyday man.
Well, once again, like I feel this episode is sort of turning into a how society has perverted all of these words. But I feel that we live in such a stand your ground and like don't bend to anything sort of culture, which
Mm,
isn't necessarily bad from an outside point of view, right?
right.
But Christ tells us to turn the other cheek. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean that he's not telling you to be meek. And
Right.
meekness definitely isn't weakness. I don't like whenever Christian or people say Christians are weak, or that they're cowards, or
Mm,
because it says specifically in the Bible that God hates a coward.
mm,
So, because it's a lack of faith
yeah.
overall. So, how do we cultivate peace? Get people to love each other.
And what's one of the best ways to get somebody to love somebody else? Love them.
Free food. Oh,
Yeah. Free food is definitely the way to many people's hearts. I know that gets me. If you give me free food, we're buddies for life.
yeah. So we're connecting the dots here, right? So
Yeah.
we went from faith, or hope is produced by faith,
Hmm.
and peace is produced by
Hope.
faith. Well, I
I
guess.
mean,
Well,
it can be it can be a whole lot of things. I mean, the peace in that Christmas truce was fostered by hope
there you go.
that
Yeah,
nothing was going to happen. But peace can also be, peace can be settled with love, like the love of extending an olive branch to somebody and saying, I'm done. I'm done with the anger festering. I'm done with the hate. I'm done with this. Let me show this act of love so that we
you're
may
right.
have peace.
Yeah, the peace of standing under the mistletoe together,
Sure.
big smooch.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think love is the big key here. And we've talked
Yeah.
about love many times
Yeah. And that's
on this
the
podcast. But I mean, if we're drawing the line, then it goes from faith to hopes,
yeah.
but not hopes like positive and negative, hope in the general way that the Bible describes, in that it gives you a peace that
Yeah.
surpasses all understanding. And
Right.
that can be spread about using,
Love.
that's
Free food.
correct. Yeah, free
Love and
food.
free food. But yeah, Jesus feeding 5,000, free food.
That's true. That's true. He met their needs. Fishes and loaves,
Their
baby.
stomachs got peace. Stomachs got peace that day.
Fishes and loaves.
But yeah, but so then with peace, a lot of us, we have, negative thoughts that come in our minds, people battle depression, anxiety, addiction. I mean, with all of the things, I mean, we're sinners, we've messed up, we've made mistakes. How do we find peace in ourselves?
Well, I think once again that this definition of peace has kind of been misunderstood as an equilibrium,
Mm,
but it's not.
right.
Once again, I think it's a mentality thing.
Yeah.
Um, a mentality thing of like, yeah, I'm going to choose joy, which is another thing that we're supposed to choose joy. A lot of people
Yeah.
think that it's a feeling that just comes about based upon other interactions that they have or things that
Right.
happen to them. But I think you have to choose joy, and that's where peace is activated. Because I
Mm,
think that Jesus, beside maybe a couple times in his life, closer to the crucifixion, was at peace, like almost always. That doesn't mean he
yeah.
didn't get angry.
Hmm.
He still flipped tables, but within
Oh yeah.
himself, he was at peace. Whenever a great example is Jesus as the calmer of the storm.
Yeah.
I love this story. I love
Hmm.
this story. He's taking a nap in the bottom of the boat. Everybody else is freaking out. They are not at peace,
Yeah.
right? The Sea of Galilee, which is small, is getting this boat is getting crashed by the wind and the waves. And they go down. They're like, "Don't you care that we're going to die?" And Jesus, who is totally at peace in all of this, in other words, calm. He is at
Hmm.
peace. He's calm. His body, maybe I suppose if you had to put it this way, is at an equilibrium of sorts. So where he's like, okay, that's, it's whatever. He goes up and he's like, hey, peace,
Hmm.
and then the winds and the waves have been calmed.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting theme. We could talk about that story in another episode
Oh
because
yeah,
I've heard a
for
sermon
sure.
recently
Mm.
about that. So
Yeah, that'll
maybe
be an
whenever we get
episode for
back from
season
break,
two.
yeah,
I mean, season three.
maybe we get back from
Yeah.
break. But anyway, so yeah, I think that throughout Jesus's life, peace was so often just a part of who he was, which
Yeah.
gave him along with being God,
Yeah.
gave him the power and the ability and the gumption to go do the
Yeah.
things that he did.
I mean, Prince of Peace.
There you
And
go.
that's
Yeah.
that's one of the in Isaiah 9:6. For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. And that is, I mean, that's also a popular song around the Christmas time. For unto us a child, dun, 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 dun. Sorry, I've got Messiah on the brain.
I like the trap remix. I'm just kidding. I don't know if there is a trap remix.
Hey, if there isn't, somebody should make one.
Yeah, somebody should make one for sure.
But yeah, or even like thinking of, Mary and Joseph in the time before Jesus was about to come. They're trying to flee Herod. They're trying to, just find, the shelter of a place when Mary is about to go into labor. I imagine them trying to have, even just all the pillars, hope through that, just like hoping that, they're going to get through the night, riding on donkey back because they had to travel from Nazareth to Bethlehem. And that's a long travel. And to have the hope through that, and to also try to have a sense of peace and understanding that this is going to work out, or the peace of once they found out that Herod was looking for them, hunting them, the hope that God will protect them, and the peace that they'll make it through.
Do you think that peace is the absence of negative emotion?
I think it can be because you were right. Peace is not equilibrium of good and bad. It is not equilibrium of nothing at all. Like peace is not the absence of emotion, but peace is the kind of like no matter what happens kind of attitude of, I'm at peace with this. If something is, if it works out good, that's great. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work
Even
out.
better.
Yeah. Because maybe it's grounds for something new. But yeah, peace can be where logic tells you that it's going to go one way, but the hope and faith and love tells you that even if it does go that way, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter.
I think an important part of peace, in a way that I would define it, is despite what's going on right now.
Right.
I think like you really should focus on the middle of the storm that you're in
Mm-hmm.
whenever you think about peace. Because one of the more common ways that one would think about peace is like someone on their deathbed,
Mm.
if they have something that they regret from their life,
Right.
or something that, and then they make that right,
Mm.
then they're still dying. You think that they're not scared of death? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like a lot of
Yeah.
people aren't, because they know where they're going.
Right.
Whereas like other people would see, what the heck? Like, what are you
Mm.
thinking? Like, I would be terrified. How can he possibly be calm and peaceful in this
Yeah.
position? I think that's kind of where the reality of the definition sort of peaks. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, for sure. That makes me think of also things that we make peace with. So you brought up the topic of death. So not to get dark, it's not dark. So I have a wonderful niece and nephew that I love so very much. They're about just 10 years old. And I have made peace with, I will do anything and everything to protect them from harm, despite of what happens to me.
Uncle Judd.
Yeah, I that is something that I've made peace with. Like I became an uncle, I think when I was in fourth grade was when my niece was born. And I didn't fully get it then, but once they grew up, they've been growing up. I mean, one of them is like up to here on me. They're 10 years old, like
Wow.
tall. But anyway,
He pointed to his collarbone, by the
yeah.
way.
But I have made peace with that I'll do anything for them.
Yeah.
I want to share another bit of scripture. This is Philippians 4 through 9. Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, and whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put into practice, and the God of peace will be with you.
Yeah.
And actually, the set verse, the second part of that, I have that memorized, and I quote that to myself all the time. When I am not at peace, when my mind is trying to get the better of me, I recite that verse of finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, pure, lovely, admirable. That I keep that in my head and thinking about things that are excellent and praiseworthy to the Lord. And that brings me back to a center of peace.
Yeah. I think it was interesting in there how it focused on giving it to the Lord,
Mm-hmm.
and that's going to give you the peace that, and like along with all those other things, will give you the peace that transcends all understanding.
Yeah.
Because it's like, imagine you had a plumber friend who was the greatest plumber. Like this guy's phenomenal. He
Yeah.
works wonders on your plumbing,
Mm.
and you have like a small issue, and it could, like, along with all the stresses of everyday life, it could make you go bonkers.
Yeah.
And then he's like, hey, don't worry, man. Like, I'll take care of it. That's God, but on a level of like 100 million more times. Like, I can't
Right.
imagine how good of a plumber God is. Better than
Sure.
anybody you've ever seen, for
For
sure.
sure.
But just that, I mean, that would give you peace to be like,
Yeah.
okay, good. Like, Walter's working on it.
Yeah.
Walter sounds like Mario. Mario's working on it.
Yeah. That's actually I like that in the idea of by we allow ourselves to have peace by giving it up to God. And that once we, in the situation that seems crazy, the storm rocking the boat, the war with impossible to walk on no man's land, we give it to God. We give our hope and our faith to God, and by giving that up, He gives us peace.
Well, and also I think that we give ourselves too much credit within our everyday spiritual
Oh
lives,
yeah.
because one of the reasons that people struggle so much in everyday Christianity is just because they've forgotten who already won.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So they're like, oh, well, I'm really fighting some things right now. Why? That's not your battle to fight.
Mm,
It's already been won. Claim
right.
your victory and move on in peace. And listen, I understand that that's a lot easier said than done.
Yeah.
Um, because giving God control of something is, I'll bring it back to the man in the pool of Bethesda.
Mhm.
Jesus walks down and says, do you want to be healed? All he has to do is say yes. And then
Yeah.
he's healed. He
Yeah.
doesn't know that yet, but he'll get to that point. And then the guy asks him, will you take me to the water? So imagine whatever you're dealing with is that man's ailment, right? So
Yeah.
whether it's addiction, whether it's, the loss of a family member, whether it's, however you deal with it, should be giving control unto the Lord,
Mhm.
which is saying, like, yes, I want to be healed, even if you don't realize that yet. But be that water, that pool of Bethesda, we'll call it your own way, your own way. And
Mhm.
you can say, like, and when you see Jesus, I mean, like, who Jesus is. That's Jesus of Nazareth. He
Yeah.
performs miracles. You see him, and you're like, will you take me to the water? And that's the position of like, Jesus, I need your help getting me through this. I've tried so many things. Like, I require your help. Please help deliver me. That's not what he wants. He doesn't want to help you. He already has helped you. That victory is
Yeah.
just yours to claim.
Mhm.
So you need to give up all control. You need to forget about that pool of Bethesda and just say, yes, I want to be healed. Now pick up your mat and walk away.
That's really good. And honestly, I think that's a really great closing point. Uh, so this has been the peace candle, the second Sunday of Advent. So we've gone through the first two now. We're halfway through, getting closer and closer to that wonderful Christmas day. Want to thank you all so much for joining with us again. This has been really great, and we're just now nearing the end of season 2. We've had a lot of episodes. We've had guests. It's been really great.
A blast.
Yeah. So if you want to stay up to date with all the info, follow at theo_thoughts.podcast for all the up-to-date details. Don't forget to check us out on WGRN 89.5 FM, Greenville University Radio, 7 p.m. Central, Monday nights. And we'll catch you with the next two, being that joy and love.
Yes, sir. Happy holidays, everybody, also.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. Love y'all.
God bless.